Home for me is probably the place I feel most comfortable, and I'm from California in the United States, and I grew up on the beach and kind of have always been like beach bum, but not really, my whole life. So I just love being at the beach or in sunny places. Because we moved, I think, 3 times when I was young, all within the same neighborhood, and my neighborhood has a beach, so it's kind of like the place where all of my friends who I've known for my whole entire life and family have all like convened. It was like a meeting place, sort of. So that's kind of what home is, because I've always been surrounded by a bunch of people.
Home for me is in Sydney, Australia, where it's very warm, very familiar with my surroundings, and I'm very comfortable with the area that I live in and the town that I'm in, and I know it like the back of my hand, so pretty comfortable and happy there. It's my home in Sydney, in the suburbs. That's what I think of.
For me, home is where your most beloved ones are. So home is family, home is comfort, home is where you feel like you belong. And essentially, I think home is above all where you want to go back to.
Well, I'd like to think of home as more like a feeling than a place, because it's like every other relationship. You just need to gain some memories and experience, whether it is with a person or a place to feel good with or at. So the place where you have all your best memories is, you can call home.
Home means where I'm comfortable with my friends and family, but also cultural, where I know exactly how to behave, and where I can be completely relaxed, I suppose.
Well, I'm a study abroad student, so I'm only here for 3 months. So I would refer to home in California.
Well, those are always like nice memories, but like it doesn't mean that if I call London my home right now, it doesn't mean that when I go home for Christmas and see my family, that's also my home. Like it doesn't have to be just this one place. That's why I say it's a feeling, because when you go back to your like, for example, when I go back to my country, I still feel home, but when I come here, I also feel home, just because it's also a familiar environment and I feel confident in. So,
ever since I left like home, left like I haven't been there all year round, I feel like it's more and more becoming my home. Like, for example, my room is my room, and obviously my parents are there. Obviously, like technically it's their place because they own it, but I feel like when I go back there, I know it's kind of selfish, but I feel like it's about me. So yeah, I make sure that I spend the first few days after, for example, now I'm going to go back for Christmas, and I make sure that when I go back, I take a few days just to allow myself to breathe in home, to feel discomfort again. I think it's really important. That's what the holidays are for.
I feel good. I miss it sometimes if I think of home as back in Sweden. But I'm also trying my best to make my contemporary rooms or wherever I'm living as close to that feeling as possible.
I would say the place I grew up in affects me a little bit, but mostly I'm affected by the people that surround me, where it's like my parents were they're very driven people, and like always would tell me to get a job at a young age, and like made me kind of be a more independent person. And so I would say they shaped me more than anything, because a lot of people from my hometown don't ever really leave, and they got me out. Here I am in London, so I'd say my parents kind of had a big influence.
Very much so. I'm very fortunate for the area that I come from and the opportunities I've been given, and like the school I attended and where I go to uni, and so I think it's played a big role in shaping who I am today.
Well, I think it's bound to have an effect. Obviously, I've spent like the first 18 years of my life there, so I feel like it definitely made me a more in a way a more not close-minded, but more conventional. Like, sorry, it made me a more a traditionalist, if you wish, because I come from a small country, so we have obviously different cultures, different traditions. But I think on the most part, it actually shaped my determination and this just feeling that you're not allowed to give up, that you mustn't give up, and that's what I brought here when I came here.
When I was staying at one place in my native country, it was a whole new thing. So I think that it really shaped me just because the whole cultural difference, and it really took some time to adapt during those past 3 years. So yeah, definitely. I think I was more closed and definitely a bit more excited and emotional just because of the cultural let's say framework of where I grew up. And then here it's just because it's a massive city and everyone kind of minds their own business, so I kind of closed up a bit, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, it definitely influences.
What your home country's about to?
Well, it's everything from what friends you had and have, family, cultural differences, and everything I've learned has affected me. So everything I've experienced have affected me and made me who I am today.
Definitely a little bit. My parents were here last week, and it's like right now it's kind of like I see the light at the end of the tunnel of going home. And so when they left, I definitely was like, oh, I really wish I could go with them. But I also like being in a different environment and being in a big city because I'm from a pretty small town. So there's moments, but not anything like super sad.
Homesick?
Yeah.
No, actually I was expecting I would, but I haven't. I've been quite chill with my experience, and everyone was saying before I left that you'll go through a phase where you get really homesick and you want to go home, and I haven't experienced that, which is really good, and I haven't really missed social things as much as I thought I would.
I felt terribly homesick, yeah. When I first moved, I had a really tough time getting used to this place. But it passed. I'm much better now.
Not very homesick, but I am very much looking forward to go home for Christmas.
Memories.
Love and support.
I know this is gonna sound weird, but I think essentially the first and the most important thing that makes a house a home is like the mother. So, for example, your mom. For example, my mom to me has always been my definition of home, my first definition of home. So I think other thing is your memories. So if you have memories from a certain place or a certain house or even a certain room, you're gonna associate it with a certain feeling, for example, of comfort or of security, and I think that's what home is about.
That's completely down to each person. But in my case, I would say, because I've lived in different student flats and where I am comfortable speaking to everyone, where I can completely be myself and not ever be stressed about being home, just being completely relaxed. That was what I would call a home then.
So it's just having a place where you feel...
Absolutely, yeah. But also the overall atmosphere and everything in that house. Well, yeah, I suppose I have. But maybe not from my childhood, but just generally from, I don't know, summer and stuff.
Do you feel quite nostalgic?
I can be, yeah. And that's also part of looking forward to going home. But it never makes me feel bad in that way.
Not really. My parents weren't like the picture taking, like video camera always out family, so I'm also the youngest, and they kind of got not bored with me, but just bored of all the scrapbooking and all that.
Yeah, but not recent ones.
Okay.
It was like one of those old tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really funny because now I converted them to be able to watch them on my Mac, and it's really funny to see all that kind of like old old movies, and well, I get sentimental, so it's a nice feeling to go back.
Like old home videos. I do. I think just nostalgic and happy, and it's easy to forget memories, and then when you look back at it, it's like, oh, they were good times.